Congrats on the film. It's beautiful, it's funny, it's heartwarming, and I have to say I really enjoyed the twist, slight spoiler, that mom and dad did not get the typical happily ever after, but it just still felt right and good. And I was curious, was that always the plan for the story? And how important was it for you to tell it knowing there's going to be so many families and children watching who are going to find themselves relating to what they're seeing?
Yeah, it was really important. It was always part of the story. Back when Skydance first pitched to me the idea, that was the point, that we represent families that are going through this, or, that they just never get this kind of ending. And the fact that the movie wasn't gonna like parent trap the parents is, I really loved it, and that it offered, a great way forward for the family. So the story was really different back, several years ago when it was pitched me, but that was always there. Asked why what it was important. Well, you know, so I mean, my own stepdaughters have been through this, right? When I met their dad, they the family was only a couple of years divorced, and there wasn't a lot of animosity or anything. The parents weren't monsters, other, but it was their story too. It's a lot of people's stories. My parents stayed together. Sometimes I wonder if they should have, but um, it just seemed like it was a story worth telling, and a dynamic that's so common that we need a fairy tale about it. Fairy tales are supposed to help us kind of move through these milestones in our lives, and the timeless ones show you, even though the way you tell the story is different, but the guiding light through what it means to be human is always there. And this one wasn't. We didn't see one like this. So
Agreed. I was trying to think. I don't think I've ever seen a mainstream animated film cover this topic in this way, and I just thought it was beautiful.
thank you. I appreciate that you got it. It was tricky for a while, explaining it to, we wanted a couple of different studios to help us, distribute the movie, because we don't have a theatrical distribution arm at work. And they would all say, oh yeah, it's really, wow, it's an amazing story and very moving. And then they kind of ghost us. It wasn't really till Netflix that, you know, somebody was brave enough to say, yeah, no, let's get this out there. Let's get this to the world. This is important.
Well, I'm glad it worked out. Alan Menken, you got to work with the EGOT goat of like children animation. Like, I don't even know if I have a specific question. I just feel like there's got to be some really great stories that came out of having the legend sit down in the office and come up with these beautiful songs and score for the film. So honestly, whatever you want to share, I want to hear it.
Oh, if I could find this video, oh, it'd be so hard. But yeah, it's an amazing dream come true. I remember seeing Little Mermaid. I wasn't a little kid, obviously, but I was new in the industry to some degree, and I thought, oh, love this. It's just felt so timeless. And if I could ever work on a movie like this, it would be amazing, Um, and we met with him pretty early in the story process. The story was still, how to tell the story was still coming together. And we did like a music retreat together in Santa Barbara. We had our writers, my editor Susan, and head of story Brian, and Glenn, the lyricist, obviously, our music producer Chris Montan, who went all the way back to Little Mermaid, and start just talking about the story. Okay, the story as it was. How is it moving forward? What about, how do we do that? We knew we weren't like musical. We love musical theater. We'd never created it before. A bunch of us were like, well, okay, so what about the I Want song? How do you do that? And so we would talk about, well, what does she want? She wants her life, her normal life back, the way things were. And it's hard for a teenager who doesn't, they're like, parents aren't cool. So, right? But she's at that cuspy edge of like, parents aren't cool, but I kind of miss them, and I just want my normal life back. Why can't I just be a normal kid and all of that? So um, he had a piano in the room and he would just start to play. Oh, this fairy tale theme he came up with at one point. We were weeping. Talk about weeping. If he's in the room playing for you, and then he slips into like Pocahontas, and we're like, oh.
I'm really jealous. Okay, that was a great story, but I'm jealous.
Well, if you're in LA, I think he's doing a show like that on Sunday night. I don't know who's in
I
LA, but
wish. I wish. Now I'm in DC, so not
you're
close enough.
right.
So you had some of my favorite people in this movie too, like Nathan Lane and Titus, John Lithgow. I thought they were all phenomenal. When you have talent like that in the booth, do you just let them run with their lines, or did you try to cage them in at all? Because I feel like, especially with Nathan and Titus, they're just gonna go. And you kind of have to be like, okay, I'm just here for the ride.
Well, I don't think of it as caging. I just think of it as focusing, making sure
That's
they
the better
know.
word.
Yeah, making sure that they know if the script is evolving, right? And we work with storyboards so much. So, sending them a script every time we record, it doesn't always work, but pages certainly. And I would just talk them through what the point of the scene was. If it wasn't super clear, we treat it just like a rehearsal for a play, read the whole scene and talk about like, well, this is what Luna wants from the princess here, or in the case of Nathan, and or this is what Sonny is hoping Ellian will feel, and then he can do it his own way to get there. How can Sonny be the nurturing, new agey, always look on the bright side of life kind of therapist? He can decide how he's going to help her feel that way as long as he understands what the point of the scene is. So that's the huge fun of directing, is that the actors make the performance authentic because they're actually feeling it. They're not just imitating anger. I used to call it vocal gymnastics. I don't ask them to do vocal gymnastics. I tell you, like Nathan, he didn't think we really wanted him for the movie. He was trying to talk me out of casting him. And
What?
I know, because he was like, I don't do musicals anymore. You don't want me. And I'm like, no, we do. But he shows up with a script with all of these ideas, tons of them written into the script. And some of those jokes are still in the movie. Some of those ideas he came up with are still in there. Especially some of the fun, silly banter, like, oh, it smelled like cooked cabbage in there, and just all kinds of silly stuff. But yeah, I have to be the conductor, right, of the orchestra.
Yeah.
I can't just let each instrument go off on a solo.
Exactly. Well, it's great. Thank you so much.